Today we're taking a first look at this compact, super innovative, and extremely well thought out device that should save you a ton of time and money when you're going solar. So this was released in late 2024 in tandem with the FlexBoss inverter, and it was designed to solve a very unique and specific problem. And so today we're going to dive into why this thing exists and if it could be a good solution for you. This right here is the EG4 GridBoss. So welcome back to the lab where our opinions cannot be bought. For clarity, before we get any further into this, the FlexBoss 21 that we just released a video on is an inverter. It can stand on its own two legs. It can work all by itself. The GridBoss, however, requires an inverter. This is like a buddy system to an inverter. This basically takes, in simplest terms, all of the switches and accessories that you used to have to buy externally when you were installing like an 18K for it to be able to meet code, puts them all into one place, gives you a bunch of other bonus features. By itself, it's pretty much useless. EG4 realized that when people were going solar and they were buying the 18K, for example, they were spending at least $2,000 to $2,500 in just mandatory switches and wiring just to make it meet code requirements. And so as a result, Jimmy and the boys put their head down and got to work designing the GridBoss, which basically just simplifies the entire process and saves you a ton of money. So today we're gonna dive into what exactly this thing is, what it does, if it's worth it for you. But before we jump into anything else, we're gonna hit you guys with a super quick spec teardown to get you guys up to speed on the EG4 GridBoss. First up, this weighs 55 pounds, so it passes the tiny baby lift test, no problem. And to make this entire thing more understandable, it's called an MID. An MID stands for Microgrid Interconnected Device, which sounds like a lot of words, but what it really means in simplest terms, it's an all-in-one device that connects everything from the grid, your batteries, inverters, and your generators all into one device, into a single organized system, basically cleaning up all of the external switches and transfer switches and wiring that you used to have mounted outside of your like 18K, for example, on the wall, and all the mess that went into actually installing a system, and it cleaned it up tremendously. This has a max power handling of 200 amps, which means it's enough to keep up with your entire home. It has a UL certification. And if you go ahead and actually take a look at the connections this guy has, you have your 3 hybrid inverter ports right here, up to 90 amps each. So basically you could pair up to 3 of the new FlexBoss 21s into this unit. You have your 4 smart load ports, which we'll get into a little bit later. It's actually a really cool feature. Basically 2 of these are rated for 60, one of them is rated for 80, and the last one is rated for 125 amps. So you have your grid input. This is where you would directly connect it to the utility power. You have your generator input, and then you have your manual bypass switch right here, which is actually really cool and traditional to most manual bypass switches that people use to install on their actual breaker panel. It looks really familiar. I like the way that looks. I like the way it feels. You also have your PV disconnect on the side. You have your Wi-Fi dongle, so you can connect to this thing with the app and control it all remotely. And looking around at the rest of the build, this is the first unit I think EG4 has ever put these little handles on where they actually work to pick it up and move it around. It doesn't just pinch your hands and cause problems. You have the same locks that you do on the side of the 18K, but these ones don't actually have a keyhole. There's like a little like shed lock type thing here that you could put an actual lock through if you wanted to. Indication lights across the bottom. And other than that, it's a very clean unit considering how much it actually does. And you can get this thing for $17.49 using our discount code. We have a link in the description if you want to check it out. I think it actually auto applies the code now because we've leveled up. The first thing that we really like about this unit is the smart ports. Aside from all of the other functionality that this thing adds, the smart ports are almost like a bonus for the price. And it's becoming something that's, I don't know that it's necessarily mandatory everywhere yet, but they're talking about making it like a mandatory requirement. So if you have an 18K and it has a 12,000 watt output, your entire home, if you turn everything on in your home, water heater, air conditioner, all that stuff, you're gonna be way over the 12,000 watts. So what these smart ports allow you to do is pick items that you're okay with shedding. For example, your water heater. A water heater, the water in there is always hot. It comes on every once in a while to make sure it stays hot. So if you put the water heater on a smart port and then you have grandma going ham, making a crazy turkey dinner in the kitchen, your air conditioner is running and every light in the house is on, if the water heater tries to come on, the GridBoss will recognize that, say, hey, later, once grandma has calmed down and all the power usage has, dropped a little bit, we'll flick on the water heater and let the water heat back up. And so you can do that with up to 4 different things, which again, it's like if you're cooking dinner and your car tries to charge, it's like, hey, we can afford to charge that while I'm sleeping. I can't cook dinner while I'm sleeping. So it is a cool feature to be able to just shed non-mandatory loads. I also think that this is honestly just a great device. I think a lot of people are gonna look at it and see, oh, there's a big price tag, like, I don't know. But the reality is, it's literally $700 cheaper than just a manual transfer and bypass switch, plus a trip to the wiring store. Like, people were on average spending about $2,500 just to install this 18K and get it up to code. This is under $2,000 and it has a load more features. And not only does it have all of the other pieces plus more, like your smart loads, look at it, dude, it's so clean. You hang this beside your inverter, you're done. It's also got everything built all into one place. So if you have a problem, you don't have to call whoever made the switch or whoever made the wires or whoever installed it, or it's all the same company, the same pieces, the same parts. It's just less headache and less fumbling. Another thing that's really cool is the 3 available ports for hybrid inverters. So basically, this one small, compact little unit can have 3 FlexBoss 21s going into it. So you can have a massive solar system and you don't need to buy 3 of these, like 1 per inverter or something dumb like that, which is another bonus. You don't have to have 1 transfer switch per inverter, 1 bypass switch. You just have 1 GridBoss, 3 FlexBosses. And I know we've touched on pricing a little bit, but I do like that the way this system is kind of being built is like the FlexBoss is $700 cheaper than the 18K. And it's bigger and better, does everything except it doesn't have a 200 amp pass through, which this does. So if you're trying to tie it into the grid for less than the extra switches and wires and stuff, you buy this thing, and now you've saved almost $1,400 on your total setup. And you have a huge system with way more functionality than you were getting just a year ago with an 18K. So I really like the EG4 made everything cheaper for off-grid people who don't need the 200 amp pass-through, and they made everything cheaper for on-grid people by offering them this. My point is, a lot of people would have released a solution like this and then charged a premium because it has the smart loads and it has all this stuff. Whereas EG4 is like, no, we did this to help save you guys money. We're gonna make it cheap. This unit, just like the 18K and the FlexBoss, is also, I think this one's actually less. It's NEMA 3R rated, but still rated to be outside in the rain and whatever. It has your little ski boot locks on the side. You have your weather seal on the back of this door, and it comes with little seals for all the ports and stuff that maybe you're not using or whatever. It's a really well thought out system. And finally, I actually like that they don't have a screen on this. I like that all they have is lights and there's nothing else on the front. It's not an overwhelming system to look at. It's not an overwhelming system to try and set up. You use your phone. Everything is very simple and clean. They didn't try to make it flashy for no reason. I think that's pretty cool. So that is it. If you guys are also curious about the FlexBoss, we just released a video on that. It's also a first look video. We intend to do some testing like we normally do with the FlexBoss. This thing requires a crazy setup to actually be able to run it and test it. But if there's anything that you guys would like to know or tests you would like to see on this thing, make sure you leave them in the comments down below. Otherwise, make sure you guys are subscribed. That is all we got for you guys. I will catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out and stay charged.